Very good morning, dear students. I am Dr. Maurya Dynasty of Andhra College. I teach history, and today we are here to discuss about the greatest emperor of India, Ashoka. We will be discussing about his early life, his service as an emperor, and the propagation of his dharma. Ashoka, as you all know, belongs to the Mauryan Empire. I must tell you before I go ahead the background in which the Mauryan Empire got established. As you all know, the first territorial states of India are the 16 Mahajanapadas, namely Anga, Asaka, Avanti, Kasi, Kosala, Kuru, Panchala, Chedi, Vatsa, Matsya, Malla, Magadha, Sorasena. And amongst these, we find around the 6th century Magadha rising to supremacy, and Magadha was ruled by the dynasties such as Haryanka dynasty and Nanda dynasty. In fact, before Maurya's rule, it was Nandas who were ruling, and Nandas could not rule effectively, although they had a very big, vast army, and it was described by Greeks and others that Mauryans enjoyed a very big army. But in spite of that, on account of several weaknesses in the Nanda dynasty, they are unable to shield the country against foreign invasions. It was at this background that we find Alexander invading onto India. And we also see there is a chaotic situation in India. The empire from Greek, we see a unitary state, a centralized state with a weak army, advanced military technology invading into India, and under the Nandas, there was a complete derailing of the army, and the kings were given up to luxurious life, and they are not properly protecting the state. At this background, India was being conquered by these invaders. So it so struck to a priestly person by name Chanakya, who had earlier been insulted by Nandas, wanted to teach lesson to these Nandas, and also had a very noble mission of protecting this country. So this Chanakya, also called as Kautilya, had noticed Chandragupta, who belongs to a Maurya clan. He has seen him in a child life playing, and found him to be taking food from the central of the vessel, which struck to Kautilya that he could be brought up. And he was the actual person who brought Chandragupta to the fame and fore. So Chandragupta, with the help of this priestly Chanakya's support, was able to muster some military strength, and he was able to check these foreign invasions. He is supposed to have defeated or dethroned, usurped the throne from Nandas and ascended the throne around 321 BC. And this Chanakya supported Kautilya in order to unify the entire country. One after another, all the territories were being brought under the suzerainty of the Mauryans, with the Pataliputra as the capital. So around 321, the empire was established by Chandragupta Maurya, and he is supposed to have conquered a vast territory extending almost up to Savana in Karnataka. But unfortunately, during the last stage of his rule, there was a great suffering to the people, famine. He was unable to provide food for the people. So those days, emperors used to be very, very beloved of the people, and when Chandragupta could not give solution to the poverty-ridden people of the country, he wanted to end his life. So he resigned his empire in favor of his son around 297 into the hands of Bindusara, and went to Sravana and led a life of a Jaina follower, and starved himself to death after fasting for several days. That's how he ended his life, because he could not give food to his people. Under Bindusara, the empire also expanded a bit further. It was after Bindusara that around 272 we find our emperor Ashoka ascending the throne. In fact, it should be said that Bindusara is called as Amitra Ghatha. That means he is the enemy of the foes, that he cannot be defeated by any of his enemies. So we find at this background Bindusara, while he was having his rule, he appointed Ashoka as an envoy to Taxila, where he went and suppressed some rebellions in Kandahar and other places. Ashoka after that was appointed a viceroy of Ujjain, and at Ujjain, when Ashoka was there, he is supposed to have met Sanghamitta, whom he married. He was a merchant's daughter and he was a staunch follower of Buddhism. And around 272, his father died, that is Bindusara. But after the death of Bindusara, there seems to be a war of succession in which Ashoka also has participated. Ashoka was not an elder son, but there is a tradition saying that Ashoka has killed about 99 of his brothers. But this kind of a description about Ashoka as a very great tyrant is by the Buddhist texts. The Buddhist texts, as Dipavamsa, has described him to be a tyrant because after conversion to Buddhism, Ashoka has become a very great benevolent. So, they wanted to depict Ashoka's early life as a tyrannical one. So, Ashoka as a blessed emperor has brought under his control a very mighty empire, namely Kalinga. And this particular picture that you see describes about the Kalinga war. Kalinga is a very important territory. It is in the confines of south and north, and from the Kalinga through Orissa, you can also enter into sea and foreign trade, and it is also it is also having a south and north trade links. So, if somebody controls Orissa or Kalinga, he will be getting access to lot of money, that is in the form of taxing the people. So, he wanted to conquer this Kalinga. His forefathers could not conquer that Kalinga. That is why Ashoka says in his famous quotation that he has conquered avijataha bi vijataha, he says, the empire that could not be conquered by his forefathers, that he has conquered. But this war, though he turned out to be very victorious, proved to be very turning point in history for good of him and also for the good of this country. You find that in this great Kalinga war, 1 lakh people died, they were mutilated, and much more than that number got wounded, and lot of them were also captured and used as slaves to bring about a lot of forests in northeastern frontier provinces under agricultural cultivation. There was a need to extension of the cultivation at that time. So, Ashoka's defeating Kalinga was of lot of economic prosperity to the state, but seeing the bloodshed, Ashoka's we find him got lot of psychological feelings, and he felt bad about the bloodshed. So, he got converted, slowly drifted towards a peace loving person, and supposed to have been converted into Buddhism. The picture that you see is about his meeting his convert. So, he got attracted, not immediately after the war that Ashoka got converted, but took some time, but he got attracted. And Ashoka, after that, the Kalinga war took place in around 260, that is the 9th regnal year, and from there it took some time for him to completely get into the fold of Buddhism. And after this, Ashoka said that he would never wage a war, he would win the people with propagation of his dharma. So, that is the general background to Ashoka's propagation for dharma. So, if you look at his chief incidents in life, 273 ascended the throne, 268 he was coronated 4 years after his ascending the throne by a war of succession, 260 Kalinga war, 259 he got converted to Buddhism, 258 what we find is he is visiting Bodh Gaya, 248 he is appointed Dharma Mahamatas, 251 he has also propagated Buddhist kind of philosophy, and 232 we find that he is breathing the last. What we find is 250, we find that Ashoka organizing the third Buddhist council. So, these are the main events of Ashoka, and in fact, we are completely blank about the very name of Ashoka, or that he belongs to the Mauryan Empire. But James Princip, he was an official in the mint of the East India British East India Company, and there he came across a inscription that is in which it is written Devana Priya Priyadasi. One is not very clear who is this Devana Priya Priyadasi. After corroboration with other findings, it was found that it was Ashoka, who was an emperor of the Maurya Dynasty, named as Devana Priya Priyadasi, that Ashoka was beloved of gods. Why this particular epithet was given to Ashoka? Because of his service to humanity and mankind. All that Ashoka did could be seen to have been propagated by the emperor himself in large number of edicts, and we have about 14 major rock edicts and large number of minor rock edict and cave inscriptions, and all these speak about the dharma that Ashoka followed. It must be kept in mind that Ashoka's dharma should not be equated with Buddha dharma. Ashoka, the dharma that he followed, is the combination of essence and good principles of all the religions that existed in this country, such as the Buddhism, the Vedic religion, Jainism, and Ajivakas, and etc. So, it is not true that his dharma is a Buddhist dharma. Ashoka's dharma are described in all the edicts. If we go ahead, the first rock edict, it is all these edicts are given Prakrit, Aramaic, Greco-Aramaic languages. All those inscriptions that we find in India were all in Magadhi, Prakrit, or Pali. All those we find outside this country are Aramaic or Greco-Aramaic languages. The first rock edict we find in its original text, Idda na kinchi jivam arabetta. That means here no living being should be killed. It also reads Prajuhit taryam na samajo katavya, which means here no social gathering should take place. If you read this inscription, it says that here no general assembly should take place or no animal should be slaughtered. So, he opposed the slaughter of animals. Here means it should be Pataliputra or a very important place in his empire where lot of people belong to different religious sects meet. Why is that he is saying about this? He is saying about this because when some people are gathered at some place, if a particular religious sect propagates its religion through a gathering, due to the utterance of that particular person, we may see that other religious people will be getting hurt. So, he says in this particular place where large number of people gathered, there should not be any kind of a public meeting. Also, he banned that at this place no animal should be killed. Even a slightest animal, we must not inflict the smallest pain. That is the first rock edict. The second rock edict says about his welfare measures, such as construction of roads and digging wells, and also providing shady trees on both sides of the roads that he constructed, planting of medical herbs, and providing the lot of fruit gardens throughout the territory, and all these are all the welfare measures, which also includes medical facilities for the human beings and the animals. This is the second rock edict. The third rock edict contains a vague references to religion. It declares that liberality to the Brahmanas and Sravanas. Brahmanas means Vedic Brahmins, Sravanas means either the Buddhist or Jaina monks. So, he is not totally a follower of Buddhism, he is not totally favoring the Buddhist religion. He says Brahmins, Sravanas, people of all the people, all the religious sects must be respected, and lot of financial support must be provided to them. The fourth rock edict speaks of religious tolerance. Once again, fourth rock edict says about tolerant to all other religions. Fifth rock edict speaks of introduction of institution of Dharma Mahamatras. In order to propagate his Dharma, he has appointed a fleet of officials centrally appointed, whose work is to go around the entire country to propagate the Dharma that he wanted that his people to follow. The sixth rock edict makes relationships between the king and the subjects via the Dharma Mahamatras. Dharma Mahamatras have to go and propagate Dharma among the people and be an ambassador between the king and the people. And the Dharma Mahamatras should report to the king whenever any incident happens in his territory, and he must report from different parts of the country whether the Dharma is properly followed or anyone is not following it, deviating it and creating torture to animals and human beings. Seventh rock edict relates to pleading of tolerance among all the sects. Lot of communities were asked to mingle among their places, that one should not speak great of one's religion in the midst of all the sects, so that they will be hurting the sentiments and feelings of the other religious sects. This is a act towards religious toleration. The eighth rock edict, which was given in the 10th regnal year, he says that he went to Bodh Gaya to pay a visit to the Bodhi tree, and that is the place where Gautam Buddha had spent a lot of time. Ashoka speaks about stopping the pleasure hunting. When he goes to Bodh Gaya, he says that till then all the kings used to go for hunting in the forests, So, that is only for pleasure. So, Ashoka bans this kind of pleasure hunting, and in the place he says that he would go for dharma yathas. That means, in order to propagate dharma, in order to support the people, he must go about. So, in the way it will be saving money, it will be saving energies, and it is also helping the people. That is the whole thing about the eighth rock edict. The ninth rock edict speaks about an indirect attack on the Brahmanas and members of other religions. In this he says, both the mothers and wives in the families, they organize a large number of festivals, either on the time of birth of a child, marriage of a child, death of a person, when a disease visits the house, or for any important event, considering it to be bad or good woven and all that. So, a lot of meaningless superstitious rituals are conducted, in which a lot of offerings are given to the Brahmins. So, Ashoka asked the mothers, wives not to indulge in such things. The 10th rock edict, which brings lot of glory to Ashoka, he says, now I am denouncing all the glory that I see is service to my subjects and seeing my subjects to follow the dharma that he is propagating. The glory does not come by conquest, the glory does not come by wealth. He says, I denounce all that glory that comes from by that kind of a methods, but he sees glory to be only when he succeeds in making his people throughout the empire to follow his dharma. And he made plea to all the people in the 11th edict to be considered to friends, elders, to take care of the parents well, and also all the living creatures. So, this kind of a service, he says that whatever one has, he must give a part of it to his friends, relatives, parents, elders, Sravanas, Brahmanas, and also to even give gold offerings to Brahmanas and Sravanas. In the 12th rock edict, he once again retaliates the religious toleration among the various religious sects. The 13th rock edict is the most important among all the Ashoka's life. It expresses a new idea that the conquest of dharma instead of conquest by violence. So, he says that he would stop waging wars of conquest by bloodshed. In its place, he says he would like to go about propagating his dharma. 14th rock edict is the last one. In the king explains that he had inscribed all these edicts on the pillars, rocks, caves, and it appears according to the Buddhist literature, he got about 84,000 stupas in his empire and outside the empire propagation of these faiths. And all these edicts you see inscribed in different languages, and we should tell that he says that all the service and welfare measures that he is offering, he says that not only in the territories which are directly under his control, he would provide all these facilities to the people, but all those who accept to follow his principles, he says that he will extend all this support involving a lot of finance to provide medical facilities, construct wells, dig wells, construct roads, and provide all the medical facilities. He says he would liberally give financial support to all the kings and the empires and emperors who would accept his dharma. By this, it should be understood that he is conquering by dharma, not by war. So, he says that he is building a vast empire not through wars, but by propagation extension of his dharma. It should be told that he has spent all the money that he has in his treasury in giving all these charities and providing all this kind of a support to the people of his country. So much so, the family members of Ashoka, one of his own wife, got annoyed. So much so that when he is spending so much money, paying so much attention to this particular propagation of faith, she got at one point of time created injury to the tree, that is Bodhi tree. So, this should be taken into be very serious consideration. So, Ashoka has in fact 3 wives, one being they married at the time when he was in Vaishali, Sanghamitta, Karuvahi, then another one Padmavati. And one of his wife was, I explained to you, that annoyed, but the one whom he married at Vaishali was the one who was responsible to draw Ashoka towards Buddhism. It was her daughter, that is her daughter Sanghamitta, and her son Ashoka's and Asandhimitra's daughter and son Mahinda and Sanghamitta, who was sent as ambassador to propagate Buddhist religion in Ceylon and Nepal. And that is how Ashoka wanted his son to serve the people before, when they came and asked that they would get married or would settle in life, he asked them to do this service. Now, it is not easy in this country to make the people to follow his principles, especially ahimsa. So, let us take an example as to how Ashoka succeeded in making his people to follow ahimsa dharma. It is not easy to completely suddenly stop taking non-vegetarian food. So, he says that he lays down various stages of how people can take to this kind of ahimsa dharma. He says at first that one should not kill or create injury to any animal that is not meant for using for food or for any other ritual purposes. That is how some animals are saved. At second stage, he says some animals which are in a special stage of their life, such as oldness, such as childishness, or someone who is in pregnant state, must not be killed. So, he is going to save another set of animals. The third says that one should not kill the animals in a brutal manner. Even the agricultural animals which are to be used should not be treated with any kind of injury. And when you are killing an animal, you must not use methods in which you are putting more pain to the animals, such as making a foam by burning and creating a smoke and creating torture to the animals. So, that also he is saying that the animals which needed to be killed in a very special circumstances have to be killed in a very polite manner. And most, he says, on certain important religious and celebration days, that some animals should not be killed. So, gradually he is shifting the people from violence to non-violence. So, he was appreciated by people and he succeeded in making his people to follow this dharma. And most important, he set an example for himself. So, he ordered that in his own royal kitchen, where hundreds and thousands of animals, peacocks, deers used to be killed every day in the royal kitchen for giving to the royal family and the visitors. He says that a restriction is put that per day only 2 peacocks and 1 deer could be killed, and earlier thousands, and that also slowly he could see that even that is stopped, and he stopped taking non-vegetarian meal throughout the after he got this kind of a change in his mind. So, he set an example for himself, and he says the institution of Dharma Mahamatras must report to him about the happenings in the territory, and gives a special powers to Dharma Mahamatras that they are freed to enter into the houses of private people or even to the royal family and see whether dharma is properly followed or not. Even Dharma Mahatmas can report to the Ashoka even when he is in the activities of pleasure seeking in his royal harem or in his garden, and immediately in whatever position Ashoka is, Dharma Mahatmas are given audience, and Ashoka immediately is to take action on whatever is reported if action is required. So, that is how he succeeded in propagating this kind of a dharma. But then there is a bit of criticism of also on Ashoka. It is said that Ashoka was also responsible for the decline of the Mauryan Empire. Before we go into that, it must be said that the time of Ashoka, if you see in India, there is large number of economic advancement of all sections of the people. People were free to take to any kind of religious practices, and there also seems to be a intolerance prevailing in the country. And mind you, Ashoka's empire, as you see there, is a very vast empire extending from Kandahar almost down deep south into Andhra, Karnataka, and east and west. So, almost entire country, just barring Tamil Nadu, we find Ashoka extending a very vast empire. In Kerala also was not under his control. But in this vast empire, in order to see that people of different religious sects are kept in control, it should be understood that a policy should be evolved wherein he would bring all the people together, and this is how Ashoka, because of need of the time, has evolved a dharma which is acceptable to all the religious sects and to all the people. And you can see that donations, charities must be given not only to the Buddhist Sangha, but also to Brahmins. So, it is not that he is only following Buddhism, but the opposition to this dharma is when he says he is stopping the war. What does it mean? Does it mean that he is almost closing his army, that he is decommissioning his army? No. If you see all the stupas that he erected, you see the lion's capital. What do lion stands for? A ferocious animal, a elephant. So, he says, follow my faith, my dharma, I help you. But all the royal seals are in lion's capital with a lot of strong legged, very ferocious lions. So, it is not true that he has become a mild person. He has become a very strong person, a very vast empire. Iddam, the ajivataha bhi vijataha. So, the very Ashoka's deeds explain that the empire is very strong, nobody can dare attack the empire. So, it should be taken like that. But the argument says that Dharma Mahamatras, when they are given so much superior power, as long as Ashoka is powerful, they would be under control. But the officials were also, not only Dharma Mahamatras, other officials were also asked to go within their territorial divisions to see whether the dharma is properly propagated, followed by subjects or not. These people must have overacted and brought about discontentment to the people. Lot of people following various religious sects must have got disturbed by overacting of Dharma Mahamatras or the other officials in the local area. So, that is how there seems to have been a revolt against the state, and the revolt came in the form of the killing or murdering of the last of the Mauryan emperors, Brihadrata, by Dasharatha, by Pushyamitra Sungha, a Brahmin. And this revolt seems to be a Brahminical rebellion, because the Mauryan state was giving lot of support to Buddhism. But this is not the reason alone. The post Ashoka times, the successors became very weak, and there were lot of revolts against the state. There were also foreign invasions. There was also financial constraint. As you see, Kalinga war, so much of destruction was made. So, a very big army must have been employed, and Mauryan administration itself is centralized, and the central state is supposed to be collecting taxes from throughout the country. The administrative apparatus is very vast. Unless and otherwise there is a strong ruler, there is a possibility that the territories of far east very long distances would slowly secure independence, and there were a lot of revolts. So, financial crisis, foreign invasions, inefficient successors, and the excessive spending of money on the propagation of dharma and the charities, and also a bit of derailing, demoralizing of the army must have all together brought about decline of Mauryan empire. But nonetheless, the history of Ashoka and the contribution of Ashoka stand as a stalwart pole star in the history of not only of this country, of the entire world. Thank you very much.